Good evening, everyone. My name is Zach Gondelman, and I serve as the TBE student intern. I'm here to introduce two absolutely incredible and wonderful longtime members of our community, Jessica Wolfe and Andrew Compaine. Jessica is a research clinical psychologist specializing in behavioral research and looking at traumatic stress events like war and everyday stress. And Andrew is a psychiatrist in clinical practice with a particular interest in long-term work with patients around resilience. So we are here this evening to get to know a little bit more about our new TB initiative. So I will pass it off. Take it away.
Thank you, Zach.
Thank you, Zach. Hi, Jess.
Hi, Andrew. So we're very pleased to have the opportunity to talk with you tonight about our new initiative. It's really kind of a steering committee called Darchei Tikvah, or Pathways to Hope. And we thought we would share with you a little bit about how it came into being and where it sits in the TBE family, and hopefully invite you to give us input about your interests in working with us going forward. Andrew, do you want to kick it off?
Yes, so Darchei Tikvah was it grew as from the ground up. It was an idea that was beginning to come into Jess's mind at the beginning of the pandemic, when we were all in shock and kind of wondering, how do we respond as a community? And Jessica connected with Cantor Suffren at the time, who was, of course, the head of Caring Community. And it was decided that this infant initiative that would be growing would come under the auspices of Caring Community. And so Darchei Tikvah is now a pillar in the Caring Community. And maybe Jess can talk a little bit more about how the idea germinated and grew.
Sure. So thanks, Andrew. I think the idea came to a number of us who happen to be in the mental health field, although this is not a mental health initiative by any means. As the pandemic took hold and we started to realize that we were all being dramatically impacted by the effects of COVID-19 on our daily lives. But the first thing that struck us and gave me the idea for it in part was my concern for frontline workers or health services professionals of any type who were on the front line and being affected very dramatically, particularly in places like New York City, by the horrors and stresses of what was going on with the pandemic and caring for individuals. And we began to think, and talking among ourselves, that there must be individuals within the TBE family who are on the front lines, and what could we do to be with them or assist them in coping and managing this type of unbelievable stress. And ironically, in doing so, it soon came to us that we were all being impacted in some way by the pandemic, in our effects in our daily life, our family life, our work and social life, our life as a TBE congregation, and that maybe there was something we could do to work with all of us as a family, as a congregation, that would help us in terms of restoration, renewal, coping, and growth to get through these very difficult times. Andrew, do you want to pick it up?
Yeah, I think that many of us in mental health roles have noticed that two things can happen at times of crisis. You know, it either can impact people in damaging ways, or it potentially can be a crucible for change. And our hope was the latter. And as we gathered a small steering committee, which still meets 6 to 8 people. And we're not exclusive. We were just the people who expressed an interest and wanted to get this thing started. I think that it's our goal to capitalize on the special sauce of TBE. We want to add what it is that a supportive Jewish community like TBE can do for each other at times like this that help encourage self-care, growth, sustaining hope, resilience. So, we don't claim to know the myriad of ways that this affects each and every member and each and every family in our community. And Jess has often said, I wish we could hear what it is that people are going through, what they need, separate from the clinicians who hear it from the mental health client perspective. But I think that, we've gone with our best guesses about how TBE has something to offer. So the first decision was around remaining positive, kind of putting the emphasis on hope and on growth. And there's a paradox in that. People on the one hand, we're talking about stress and things that can be traumatic, but we're also saying there are opportunities here, and there's a necessity for a community to come together and support each other.
And that kind of led us to think about what sort of activities, in conjunction with other congregants, with the clergy, with the senior staff, might we put together that would either introduce or augment things that were already going on in the TBE family. So for example, there was already meditation going on. There is a yoga program. We in the past have had a healing service, but we began to think about what additionally could we do? Could we introduce a service for hope that reflected our name, Pathways to Hope, in which music, art, poetry, liturgical readings, meditative components could all be blended together to welcome people who had all kinds of diverse interests in seeking a moment to gain some strength. Some of the other projects that we've conducted included a mending workshop with Karen Tabb to focus on the reparative aspects of coping and renewal and restoration, and involved an emphasis on mending and art as a productive and creative source of potential. We're going to be having an upcoming sort of a more educational workshop by Rabbi Beth Nadich from outside of TBE, but who has taught for us and with us before on what does the course of stress look like as one goes through it naturally, both on the short-term basis and long-term basis. And how do we understand that and make sense of that, both as individuals, as families, and as Jews, and as part of the TBE community?
Yeah.
What other activities, Andrew?
Yeah, we don't have a full list because this is evolving, and we welcome your ideas. There's been a writing group that meets regularly, and these are people who are passionate about writing, but wanted to be writing about what's happening now in creative ways and how this affects them and their journey. We see ourselves as an umbrella. We want to sponsor additional educational programs, and we feel that there are a number of portals in which different members of our community might find this helpful. Someone might want to learn about stress and hear about pathways from the neurochemical point of view to understand what's happening. Someone else might want to hear about what are the things that they can do that strengthen their coping strategies and further resilience. And that can be all under the heading of self-care, involving things like meditation and yoga and music and artistic outlets. So, our sense is that people's reservoirs are low, and the real stress of what's happening in our world now in this pandemic is staggering, and it affects different people in different ways. But here we have a very strong community in TBE, And it felt like a necessity that we develop an umbrella organization that tries to bring together various pieces that are supporting people's growth in this hope for a crucible for change, a pathway to hope, a way to help people feel like they can sustain hope at times when it feels somewhat dark or when they're struggling with very real obstacles. Jess, did you want to say a word about the way in which this notion has continued to expand and we see it?
Yes. When you were talking, I was thinking about the fact that when we kicked off, I was originally thinking we would put ourselves out of business very quickly because the pandemic would have some discrete parameters. It would come, it would be treated, or there would be interventions, it would end, and that would be the end of Darchei Tikvah. And here we are, I don't know, 7 months later, with no end in sight, although there are a variety of therapeutics and vaccines certainly coming on the market. But we now know that the pandemic and the effect on it, on all of us and on all of the world, will go on for months and years to come. And that the impact, even when it has technically ended, will be enduring and lasting for each of us in our own way. So I guess I see us as continuing to learn and continuing to evolve and continuing, hopefully, to engage with all of you, just as we've had to learn how to live from day to day through the pandemic, and that things change over time, that this is not a static event. It's a very dynamic process of life, and one which we've never encountered before, and is really a challenge that presents in an odd way. Yep. And in an odd way presents a kind of strange opportunity for growth and renewal and restoration and understanding of what it means to have things, to not have things, to gain things, to lose things, to adjust to things, and to do it in how fortunate we are to be able to do it within not only our own families or homes, but within the larger TBE family, where we can turn in times of need.
And we have disciplined ourselves from the beginning to keep the lens. What is it that our Reform Jewish tradition, that our TBE tradition has to offer around these stresses? And I just wanted to enumerate a bit. You know, it is terribly stressful to live with the degree of uncertainty that we have, with the degree of insecurity we have, with the degree of fear we have, with the balancing of safety precautions and the risk of possible illness and death, managing our kids while we're working from home. The list goes on as to the ways in which it stresses and stretches all of us. And we'd like to help our community respond. To be frank, that's the simplest answer, is that we would like to amplify what already happens at TBE and be there to be a response to this crisis that is straining all of us.
I think that's a good way of putting it, Andrew. And we should mention again that Rabbi Rachel Sapphire has been instrumental in being, in a way, our spiritual leader now, and a close collaborator with us in this whole initiative. And we are looking forward to really working more closely with the clergy and with senior staff, as well as other congregants, on how to grow this initiative so that it's beneficial for everyone in diverse ways, because we know that everybody handles things differently. And I want to thank everyone for spending time with us this evening, and hope that this is really just the start of a journey of work together, and turn it over to Andrew to offer some ending comments.
We've really looked forward to this opportunity to share the work the evolution that's happened over these months, and we're excited about the goodness and the potential that we see even in our steering committee, but that reflects the goodness and the amazing support that is available and is present in our entire congregation. Our hope is to continue to tap into that. Our first step was to say, we're in a crisis. We all need help. Let's get at it. So I hope you'll join us, and I hope that you will feel free to email us, feel free to suggest programmatic ideas, because we're very open to anybody's feedback. We can't work in a vacuum. We're here to help and be part of a movement in our congregation.
So thank you all.
And I want to once again extend a huge debt of gratitude to both Andrew and Jessica. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. And we look forward to seeing you on a Zoom sometime soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Zach. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Zach.